Good morning, everyone. We need a formal ISP, informational security plan. Due to ACME growing at a continuous rate, expanding from 100 to 130 employees, maintaining a 50% remote workforce, our risk landscape is changing significantly. While we see here growth increases, complexity, more employees mean more devices, more system access points, more vendor relationships, more data flowing in and out of an organization. At the same time, our remote force and work expands our attack surface, right? While it's convenient having that level of comfort and area for our employees, it brings a certain amount more risk beyond our physical office, from home networks and personal environments that we don't fully control. Additionally, as a manufacturing company operating in a hurricane-prone region, not only do we face the cyber threats and physical disruption risks, but if we experience a cyber incident during a natural disaster without failovers and plans and processes in place, our impact could really be compounded, leading to business failure across potentially multiple segments. The highlight here is that an information security plan provides a structure to manage these risks intentionally and proactively rather than reactively, right? It ensures that our security scales alongside with business growth, because without a formal security structure, we are putting ourselves at unnecessary risk and exposure of operational vulnerability. So, moving into our slide 2, the business risk associated without an information security plan. If we don't formalize our security strategy, risk becomes fragmented and reactive. From an operational standpoint, ransomware is one of the most significant threats to manufacturing organizations. One single successful attack could halt production, delay our shipments, disrupt our payroll, and at the end of the day, impact our customers. Our customers have their own schedules. They require their needs to be met, which means they require deliveries to be done on time as scheduled, and there are vendor payments processing between us and them rely on customer service, customer delivery. At the same time, when you assess downtime, right, when you assess the time the business is down from a financial standpoint, it translates directly into lost revenue, right? Beyond that, incident response costs, regulatory penalties, legal exposure, and increase any cyber insurance premiums that we can get can compound that damage. While we have our own internal risks from a financial standpoint, there's also reputational risk, right? Customers and vendors expect responsibility. They expect us to understand where breaches can occur. They expect us to protect proprietary designs, contracts, data, anything that allows them to have a competitive edge, whether that contract's us, whether it's something that they house with us. It allows us to keep a long-term trust. At the end of the day, we need to understand cybersecurity incidents are not simply IT issues. They are business continuity events. This is why we must approach them with strategic alignment. Looking around the room here, I understand that we may not be as technical as the people on the ground. We may not be the most technical people that are implementing this. So at the executive level, we're looking for this information security plan that transforms cybersecurity from an informal IT function into a structured business risk management. We want to be able to define clear ownership of security responsibilities. We want to be able to establish governance. We want to be able to standardize controls across both remote and on-site employees and have that synergy and have that protection that we owe them as a business. This also ensures that we have documentation and incident response procedures in place, disaster recovery alignment, access control policies, and overall standards for data protection. This allows us, from an audit standpoint, from a compliance standpoint, this allows us to have, proof at the end of the day that, hey, we were prepared, we are prepared, and we can, fail over, protect a disaster, restrict, access and data where needed, when needed, and it's all tied to our business priorities. Most importantly, it allows leadership to make informed risk decisions, right? We need those data points, we need those data metrics, we need our people on the ground to provide us information so that we can perform and make these decisions based off of risk. It gives us visibility, it gives us accountability, and it gives us measurable controls. Ultimately, an ISP protects our revenue, safeguards our operations, and supports sustainable growth. At the end of the day, it's not a simple technical document, it's our strategic business safeguard.
This ISP is organized into 12 foundational sections to make it clear, actionable, and maintainable. The first is purpose. This upfront section articulates the goal of the ISP, how it directly supports ACME's business goals and objectives by protecting confidentiality, integrity, and availability of our information. The next is scope, which clearly defines applicability to all employees, contractors, vendors, IT assets, data, and facilities under ACME's control. The next is audience, which specifies who must comply, including roles and departments, and explicitly outlines individual responsibilities for adherence. The next is information security objectives. This sets specific, measurable goals focused on protecting consumer, customer, and third-party data. Next is roles and responsibilities. This assigns clear accountability from executive governance down to everyday employee duties, ensuring no gaps in ownership. Risk assessment and management focus on detailing our process to identify, analyze, evaluate, and prioritize risk guiding where we apply the strongest controls. Compliance and regulatory requirements references all applicable laws, regulations, and standards relevant to ACME, with plans for ongoing enforcement and updates. Monitoring, auditing, and logging requires archiving of logs, regular vulnerability scanning, system monitoring, and audit trails to enable proactive detection and response. Policy enforcement, violations, and sanctions outlines reporting procedures, enforcement mechanisms, and graduated consequences for noncompliance to deter violations. Review and update specifies periodic reviews and leadership approval for updates and a structured change process. References and supporting documents points to related policies, standards, procedures, and guidelines that operationalize the ISP. Approval and version control captures executive approval, effective date, version history, changelog, and governance details for traceability. Let's cover the core operational policies embedded within or directly supported by the ISP. These translate high-level commitments into practical rules. The acceptable use policy defines ethical and prohibited uses of ACME's systems, networks, internet, and other IT resources. It applies to employees, contractors, and all users aiming to prevent misuse, illegal activity, or harm to business operations and assets. The access control and provisioning policy enforces the principle of least privilege through role-based access controls. It covers formal granting, periodic reviews, modifications, and revocation of access for all users, including contractors and third parties, to minimize unauthorized exposure. The password and authentication policy establishes requirements for strong passphrases, no reuse across accounts, mandatory multi-factor authentication, and the best practices like password managers. It applies to anyone accessing ACME resources and focuses on eliminating credential-based unauthorized access. The remote access, remote work, and bring your own device policy mandates secure remote connections via VPN, endpoint security, encryption, and MDM enrollment for company and personal devices. It addresses work from home and bring your own device scenarios to keep resources protected outside our physical network. The network segmentation policy requires isolating networks to protect sensitive assets such as databases, servers, and high-value targets by limiting lateral movement. This containment strategy enhances overall security and supports compliance. The data classification and handling policy classifies data based on confidentiality, integrity, availability, and sensitivity levels. It prescribes specific procedures for storage, transmission, sharing, and secure disposal of all ACME-owned or governed data. The intellectual property protection policy provides a framework for identifying, managing, handling, storing, sharing, and securing ACME's intellectual property. It defines protection methods and security standards to prevent misuse, unauthorized disclosure, or loss.
Next, we have the patch management policy. This policy describes how ACME's IT department identifies, tests, and updates softwares on all company-owned devices such as computers, network devices, and IoTs. The goal is to maintain consistency and close security gaps. Based on the CVS scores, critical and high vulnerabilities should be patched within 48 hours, medium vulnerabilities within 96 hours, and low vulnerabilities during the next weekly maintenance schedule. The incident response policy defines how the incident response team at ACME handles cyber incidents. It defines what an incident is, categorizes incidents, specifies the scope, names involved parties, their role, and their responsibilities in the incident response. The backup, retention, and disaster recovery policy identifies how ACME prepares, responds, and recovers from loss, damage, or breach of asset due to natural causes or cyber attack. It also defines role and responsibilities and important aspects such as recovery time objective and recovery point objective, and mandatory compliance requirements. The business continuity policy defines how ACME keeps essential business operations running during and after a disruption. It defines which business units and assets are covered, the roles and responsibilities of involved parties, and ensures ACME is compliant with applicable laws and regulations. The vendor and third-party risk management policy defines how ACME identifies, evaluates, and mitigates risk associated with partners, vendors, and suppliers. It identifies which third party are covered, involved entities, their roles and responsibilities, risk identification, classification, and tolerance, and risk monitoring process. The Security Awareness and Training Policy defines how ACME educates and trains its personnel on cybersecurity-related risks, the personnel responsibility on asset protection, testing and training frequencies, and enforcement procedures. The Clear Screen and Desk Policy defines how ACME's personnel, contractor, and visitors secure their workspace, assets, and sensitive information to prevent unauthorized access, loss, damage, or theft, especially when the workstation is unattended. The System Lifecycle Policy defines the procedures, practices, guidelines for managing an information system from initiation and design through implementation, maintenance, and final disposal. It ensures security, compliance, and efficiency in IT investment, and focuses on automating data storage transition and managing software-hardware support lifecycle.
On this slide, I want to emphasize why stakeholder involvement is foundational to the success of ACME's information security plan. Information security is not just an IT responsibility, it's a business function that touches every part of the organization. If policies are developed in isolation, they often fail because they do not reflect how the business actually operates day to day. By involving stakeholders early, ACME can ensure that security policies align with real operational needs, which drives stronger adoption and more consistent execution. Cross-functional input also helps reduce friction during enforcement because expectations are clearly understood across departments. As shown in the table, each major function at ACME plays a distinct role. Executive leadership provides sponsorship and funding. IT and infrastructure handles technical implementation. Human resources supports training and workforce processes. Operations define acceptable downtime for critical systems. Legal and compliance address regulatory considerations. And finance helps evaluate costs and risk trade-offs. Together, this shared ownership model creates the foundation for a sustainable and enforceable security program. This cross-functional approach ultimately creates measurable business value for ACME. Building on that, this slide highlights what ACME stands to gain from strong cross-functional engagement. First, policies become much more practical and effective because they reflect real operational workflows. This reduces the likelihood of workarounds and improves long-term compliance. Second, clearly defined ownership across departments strengthens accountability. When everyone understands their role in protecting the organization, security becomes embedded into normal business processes rather than treated as an external requirement. Early stakeholder buy-in also accelerates adoption and reduces the common tension that can occur between security teams and business units. This alignment is especially important for ACME given its hybrid workforce and continued growth. Additionally, cross-functional collaboration improves vendor and third-party risk management and supports business continuity planning, both of which are critical for manufacturing organizations operating in a hurricane-prone region. Ultimately, this approach enables ACME to build a scalable security model that can grow alongside the business. To make this collaboration effective, strong governance and executive support are essential. Governance helps turn security strategy into consistent, repeatable action across the organization. Without clear governance, security efforts often become fragmented, inconsistent, and difficult to enforce. A well-defined governance model establishes ownership, creates accountability, and ensures that policies are applied consistently across all departments. Just as importantly, governance aligns security priorities with ACME's broader business goals. This ensures that security investments support operational resilience, regulatory compliance, and long-term growth. Executive leadership plays a critical role in making this successful. Leaders must formally sponsor and approve the information security plan, set expectations for compliance, and ensure that the program receives adequate funding and organizational visibility. Perhaps most importantly, executive support signals to the organization that security is a business priority, not just a technical initiative. To operationalize this governance model, ACME will need to clearly define roles and ongoing oversight activities. This final slide outlines the proposed governance structure and how accountability will be maintained. At the top, the executive sponsor is ultimately accountable for the overall success of the information security plan. This role provides strategic direction and ensures continued executive visibility. The security program owner is responsible for coordinating day-to-day implementations, monitoring risk and performance metrics, and driving compliance across the organization. Department leaders then play a critical enforcement role by ensuring that policies are followed within their respective teams. This distributed accountability model helps embed security into normal business operations. In addition to defined roles, ongoing governance activities are essential. These include regular risk and performance reporting, periodic leadership reviews, informed risk acceptance decisions, and continuous alignment with ACME's business growth. Together, this structure provides the oversight, accountability, and adaptability needed to sustain an effective security program over time.